less than a week ago, a very controversial chartered plane touched down in Martha's Vineyard, but its passengers weren't there for vacation. Instead, they were more than 50 Venezuelan migrants who had been sent there by Governors Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott as a part of a ploy to try to shed light on what they view as an immigration issue in their own state. And this seemingly ill-conceived political ploy actually pointed out something insightful: just how controversial, polarized, and extreme politics have become in America today, and specifically in the states that these two governors hail from, being Florida and Texas. And especially considering that there are elections coming up for governor in these two seats, it's interesting that these two governors created such a ploy, especially because, according to recent 538 polling from September 14th of 2022, both of these current incumbent governors are just 6 to 7 points ahead of their Democratic challengers, which for Ron DeSantis in Florida is Charlie Crist, a former Florida governor himself. And for Greg Abbott in Texas is Beto O'Rourke, a former 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful. And it's because these elections are relatively close. And it's not just a matter of state and state politics that this is important, because both DeSantis and Abbott are potential 2024 presidential hopefuls, which is why it's so important that we assess these elections and ask ourselves today's question of who is at greater risk of losing their job in November, Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis. The answer is that, well, neither are particularly likely. Greg Abbott is at greater risk of losing to Beto O'Rourke for 3 key reasons. First, because of his challenger's history. Second, because of the circumstances the elections will occur in. And third, and finally, regarding the prospects for the next few months. But first, it's important that we take a look at the histories of the challengers and how they'll uniquely impact the coming elections. Because, for example, Charlie Crist has had a tumultuous last couple of years. When he was elected in 2006, it was followed by years of failed elections for senator and governor again in 2014. And his current election now doesn't have any seeming spark behind it to lead many to believe that it could be anything different from these failed ones in the past. His history isn't working for him. However, on the flip side, Beto O'Rourke's story is a little different. While he's been similarly unsuccessful lately, he is memorable. Because, as explained in an article posted by the Texas Tribune on August 15th of 2022, Beto O'Rourke is in a unique situation where his past failures might actually push him forward. Because when he lost to Ted Cruz in a 2018 Senate race, what he actually did was grow a voter base. That same article by the Texas Tribune goes on to state that through his past failures, he's managed to grow a sort of reputation as an up-and-comer, a sort of star within the Texas Democratic Party that they have been desperately desiring. And what this means is that he has a launching pad for an election in the future in which he could potentially stand against Greg Abbott, something that Charlie Crist just doesn't have, which is why his history could be so fundamental in the future. But second, it's important that we take a look at current situations and understand why this uniquely places Beto O'Rourke in a better position. Because Charlie Crist, especially if you look at the last couple of months, has not been gaining headway. As I mentioned before, his election is largely perceived as having a lack of luster, essentially meaning it doesn't have the fire behind it necessary to take down DeSantis. And this could be for many reasons, including the fact that, according to Politico, he said that DeSantis supporters have hate in their heart, and he wouldn't want their vote anyway. Yeah, I'm not a political scientist, but alienating your voter base doesn't seem like a great idea to me. Which is why Beto O'Rourke, for example, is in a much better position. Because not only has he not alienated his voter base, but he's also managed to go forward with policies that have managed to take advantage of the circumstances he's in. Because Texas right now is a powder keg. Whether it be the Uvalde school shooting, Roe v. Wade's passing, education, power grid reform or any other number of the major issues today, his stance on it, his moderatism, and other parts of his more liberal agenda are becoming increasingly attractive to many people in Texas, meaning that because of the specific situation that he's found himself in with today's elections, he might be in a position where he could take over Greg Abbott, which is more than Charlie Crist could say in Florida. But third, and possibly most importantly, we need to look to the future, because while everything I've already said is well and good for their chances, it's important that we look to the next couple of months for sealing the deal for the elections, because there is only one of the two candidates for Democratic governorship that I've discussed today that has a chance. And spoiler alert, Charlie Crist isn't it. Because while Charlie Crist has been laughably out-fundraised by Ron DeSantis, some estimates even putting him 11 times behind him in terms of fundraising, Beto O'Rourke has created records. He raised more than $27 million for his campaign between February and June of 2022, and it's only growing. After Uvalde's school shooting and his response to it, and things like the passage of Roe v. Wade and other milestones against Greg Abbott's agenda, his support only grew, and both campaign funding, which he is now outspending incumbent Abbott, but also things regarding like his volunteer base, which is nearly 170,000 strong. It's clear that his prospects for the future, the next couple of months of campaigning, is significantly brighter than that of Charlie Crist in Florida. So when we look back at today's question of who is at greater risk of losing their job in November, the answer is clearly Greg Abbott, for three key reasons. First, because of the history of his challenger. Second, because of the fact of the circumstances that they are finding themselves in. And third and finally, because of their prospects for the future of the next couple of months of campaigning.